Okay, so yeah, welcome to the meeting. My name is Brent Raymond. Um, I'm here with Ed Hammond. We both work at the Art Institute of Chicago. Art Institute of Chicago runs 4D to manage their art collection, among other things, and coordinate all of the shipments and transactions and exhibitions that happen with the artworks, and also allow for collection managers and curators to organize their information about the art and serve that art out to the internet and to various other applications. Um, as I mentioned, this is the Midwest 4D and Wakanda user group. We have our website currently at midwest4d.wordpress.com and can be reached at midwest4d@gmail.com. I'm here in the room with a few more people. If I just switch back to the room here, there's Ed.
Hammond.
Ed Hammond. If you guys would go ahead and introduce yourselves.
My name is Jason Rude. I just started with 4D maybe about mid-2013. So by this point, I know enough to be dangerous, but I'm looking for more resources, so that's what I'm here.
Great. My name is Dan. I work for a company called Unroco. That's a library company here downtown Chicago. I've been using 4D for about a year and a half now.
Okay.
Hi, I'm off the camera. I'm Stefano, and I work here at the Art Institute of Chicago. I am not a 4D programmer, but I work with a 4D team, so I'm interested in what 4D has to offer.
Yeah.
What communities are.
Right. So hopefully you guys can hear that. We're all operating off the same microphone as at the time, but also online we have a few people connected, namely Walt Nelson.
Hello.
If you'd like to introduce yourself there.
Sure, I'm Walt Nelson from Seattle, and I run the Seattle 40 user group, and we're trying this online thing because Guy usually comes down, but it's kind of far from Canada to Seattle, so we'll try to do this instead, Guy. And yeah, this technology is amazing, huh? Next.
We have Jim Sobchak from 4D.
And Brian Young, too. Brian's in our marketing department at 4D. Hi, guys.
Okay.
Great.
Hi, Jim. Hi, Brian.
Hey, welcome, Guy.
Thank you.
We also have Guy Algut. Like to say hello?
Hey everybody, Guy Algot. I'm from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and like Walt says, I sometimes travel down to the Seattle group when they schedule it at a time that works for me. But this online stuff is good too, so I've been doing 4D since 1989.
Great.
Okay, welcome, Guy. And let's go back to my slides here. Right, so turn this thing. Yeah, can you guys see that?
No.
Black screen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's no good.
When you hit the play, are you hitting the play button?
Yeah.
You need to probably, it's opening another window, so you need to tell Google Hangouts to share a different window.
Right.
So go to screen share and pick a different window.
It's not letting me get back to that. Technology is a marvelous thing. I'm going to just print it to preview if you guys bear with me for a second and hope that that works better. Um, see that?
Ah, there we go.
Yay, yes, we do.
Okay. So here on our agenda, just have a little welcome. I think we jumped ahead to that already, but going to talk a little bit about a new online collaborative initiative with our guests from other user groups. I'm going to recap some of the things discussed at the 4D Summit that was in October, I believe, 2014. We're going to have a presentation from Ed Hammond on using the 4D info report component and our experience with that here at the Art Institute. Have some general questions and answers, and then we'll wrap up. So we've already seen this slide. But yeah, I'd like to talk a bit about something that we're gonna try and work on, which is extending the effort that we've been making here at the Midwest 4D and Wakanda user group to open our boundaries outside of the region, which we've been getting speakers from all around the world already, and we just want to start including more developers and users from all around the world as well. And this came about most recently. Tim Neville's another developer, longtime developer from Innovative Solutions, posted on the NUG that he missed the 4D Summit. I miss seeing everybody, and also miss hearing about what the news is and the scoop, and how there must be another way for us to collaborate and get together on a more usual basis. And so Walt and Barclay Berry from i.com and Tim and I started talking about what we've been doing at the Midwest user group, and decided that we might try and use that as a platform for having a more inclusive outlook on this kind of a user group thing, and use some of the resources that are available now through the Google Hangouts and whatnot to just have a completely virtual 4D and Wakanda user group. So in the next couple months, I'll be trying to rename our website to the virtual user group, and move our Google accounts to that, and move on to a wonderful future. Our goals of doing this is to combine efforts with other user groups around the world. There's no need to, in this day and age, to limit it to the Midwest, and to bring together a scattered community of developers and users. I mean, we all know as 4D developers, and I'm sure as Wakanda developers as well, that it's we're a special bunch, and sometimes it's you don't often meet a fellow 4D developer at the coffee shop. You have to be involved in user groups and reach out to communicate with everybody and see what other developers and users are doing. As I mentioned, we'll be streaming these meetings via Google Hangouts, so that people can connect from anywhere and participate from anywhere. We'll be recording them with this Google Hangouts, it automatically records the meetings, and they'll be available moving forward on YouTube. So if you missed the meeting live, then you'll be able to actually connect later and watch in your own time, and it'll help also for some of the presented content that people will be able to rewatch the presentations at a later date to to study up on what was presented. And yeah, we hope that this will provide fresh new content and exposure to all the regional groups who work with 4D and who depend on it. So yeah, moving ahead. Let's see. Yeah, is that you, Jim?
That is me, yeah.
Yeah, I was
shot?
very impressed.
Yeah. I did stay on for 8 seconds, too.
You beat all the other writers.
Yeah, most of those other guys didn't, so that's pretty good.
I know.
So just a little recap of the 4D Summit and from last year. For those of you that didn't go, it was in San Antonio, Texas. It was the 30th anniversary of 4D. They started in a long, long time ago in a land not so far away, but in 1984, and they had I think what was probably a special event at this summit. They took everyone out to a ranch in Texas, and had a band, a country band, and a full-on rodeo, and it's what else was there? There was dancing horses and.
Well, you can't forget that we got to see the end of the World Series. Thanks
Right.
to you.
It was the 7th game of the World Series.
The 7th game of the World Series.
Right. So we had a lot of people requesting that we rented a big TV for that night. So in the corner of the Giant Ranch, there were a lot of people watching the Giants game, and we had to delay the last bus by about an hour.
They were trying to shoosh us onto the bus, and Jim had nothing doing with that. So
no way. It was like the 8th inning, 7th inning.
it's like exactly. Well, there's
weren't
TV
going
on the
anywhere.
bus. Oh, right.
In the party months in advance to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's very good planning of you guys. Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, the property where the rodeo was is owned by Marriott, which is the hotel where we had the summit. So it was about an hour bus ride outside of the summit, and I think everyone had a great time. So I love the band. I thought they were really good.
And the food was excellent too.
Food was great too. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. No, it was definitely a great time as usual, and there was a lot of good stuff presented in the sessions. There was a pre-class called Migration with the Experts, where they talked about conversion optimization, troubleshooting, and new UI capabilities with the more recent versions of 4D. And there was a post-class for extending your 4D apps to the web and mobile, which largely focused on the new 4D mobile extension or capability license, however the appropriate name of it is, that connects 4D data to Wakanda project. So you're able to connect directly to your 4D data and create web applications and for the web and for iPhone and other devices. So there were a few highlights that we put together here from the summit and the content presented in the keynotes and the sessions. They went in depth into using templating in your 4D forms to sort of externalize some of the how the forms are built in 4D applications with using the new web areas and new capabilities of the process 4D tags command, where it used to be a bit more static, but now you can actually pass in parameters which allow it to more easily adapt to the content that you're trying to display, and make it more functional in your interface. There was much talk about the new 64-bit Mac application, or Mac version of 4D. It's getting closer and closer to reality, and we definitely, as Mac users ourselves here at the Art Institute, really are looking forward to a 64-bit version of it, so we can utilize all of the power of our server machines and RAM and memory and whatnot. There's a few gotchas that were to be made note of. They won't be supporting XSLT with future versions of 4D. They said to use either the PHP or, even better, the new and improved 4D tags in order to do those kind of content transformations into web content. Moving on, that you'll be discouraged, heavily discouraged, and maybe even not allowed to use the open window command, which traditionally, since the early days, was of course how you open any window. However, moving forward, we'll have to use the open form window, which is a new whole. It's the same kind of command, but operates, I think, at a lower level in a very different way, and at least to be able to use the web areas and styled text and so on, you'll absolutely have to start using open form window, and you'll have to retrofit your older applications to use that command. Another tidbit is you'll be able to use 0 for your stack size with new processes. You'll be able to let basically 4D decide what the stack size should be, so that takes out some of the the voodoo of starting a new process, so to say. How big is my stack size supposed to be? Well, you don't have to decide anymore, so that's good. You'll be able to have, there's some new capabilities with list boxes, where you'll be able to have objects in the list box. And by objects, it'll basically give you the capability to rebuild things like what you see in the property editor and in the development environment in 4D, where in one cell you can click on a button to bring up another dialogue, or a cell could have one format for entry, another cell could have another format for entry, and I think it'll really make the list box object really powerful. Not that it's not already, but it'll be super powerful once we have those capabilities.
Brent, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Are you talking about features that are coming in V14 or V15 or what?
I believe that this isn't all version specific. So I believe that in this case, the objects and list boxes are either looking forward to another R version where they introduce new features in a subversion, or quite possibly version 15. But these are things that they're actively working on, and we're excited to share.
There was a track presented by 4D on the differences between dot releases and R releases and what the content of those releases are. And I believe that the R releases will include new features, whereas the dot releases are strictly for bug fixes. So
Yeah, that's correct. And then some of the features, especially like 4D Write Pro, like currently our engineering team is working on compatibility with 4D Write Pro with the current version of 4D Write and how the documents will move from 4D Write to 4D Write Pro. So the current plan for 4D Write Pro is to release a beta in one of the R releases. We don't know which one yet, and then the entire thing will be kind of released in stages until it's like ready to go into a final release. But yeah, you're right. So our releases will be the focus on a lot of these things that we have in there in stages for some of them.
So was there any mention of V15 and
yeah,
anything?
Well, I don't know what we mentioned at the summit, but the current plan is for, well, as you know, like if you're in the maintenance program with the R releases, eventually you get to like R4, R5, R6, and then it's kind of like which one do we call V15, right? So our current plan is to release V15 probably in June, but don't hold me to that. That's just kind of like our current like time frame.
Okay.
But we highly encourage customers on maintenance to stay up with the R releases because that's where the new features are going. Some in stages, some directly into it. So.
Can you talk a little bit more about 4D's internal testing for R releases versus the dot releases?
Internal testing for R releases. Well, I can tell you that
the dot releases are bug fixes, right?
Bug fixes. The R releases are new features, and we use the R releases internally on almost all of our databases. R3, R4, like we move.
You mean both of your databases, Jim?
Sorry.
Both of your databases?
No, did I say both? I said like all of. Okay, sorry.
No,
for internal things, but as far as the testing, Walt, I can find out for you, but I really don't know the difference between how we test a dot release and an R release internally.
Okay.
But we try to get our internal databases on the most current R release ASAP because we feel those are stable, and they have turned out to be stable. So.
And there's also the hot fixes, right?
Yes, and that's kind of a new thing that we're doing. Well, as you know, we used to do hot fixes all the time. And they were kind of like, well, here's a hot fix. But now the new hot fixes we're doing with specifically version 13.5 and version 14 are much better tested. And they will include a specific bug fix or a group of bug fixes. And they're much better tested now. We do a lot more automated testing with the hot fixes than we've ever done. We feel comfortable recommending putting hot fixes into production. And even the license agreement where in the past the license agreement for hot fixes says we don't recommend this for production. We've changed that, so we feel much more comfortable about hot fixes now.
And you're still releasing dot releases like 14.3 and .4. How does an R turn into a dot?
How does an R turn? Kind of a separate line, actually. An R release is all the new features. A dot release will be, they're kind of on separate tracks, Walt. I can.
Isn't there a web page that shows how the dot releases versus the R releases work?
Yeah,
I remember seeing a graphic at Summit. I thought it was on the web page somewhere.
I'm gonna let Brian kind of touch on that one a little bit here.
Yeah, I can look that up and send you the web page. But yeah, they are two different lines, and they don't get. Let's see, when do they get unified? That's. I understand the confusion about this, and I wasn't really prepared to talk about it. But you're asking when does the R become a dot release, or when does the bug fixes get incorporated back into the R line? I'm trying to understand exactly what you're asking.
Well, you know, customers are used to having, you know, 14.3, 14.4, things like that, and our clients are a little leery of going to an R release. we're basically trying to explain to them what has happened here with
Yeah.
4D's numbering scheme, and so I guess that's kind of where I'm at, is what
you
should we be telling our clients?
Are they more comfortable going to dot releases than R releases?
Yeah, I mean, that's the way the industry works, you know. It's dot releases. And the whole idea of an R release, people think that's still like a beta.
Not really, though. So, and our releases are only available for customers on maintenance, right? So, if you're not on maintenance, you can't get the new features in an R release. And those are well tested, the R releases. The dot releases are available to anyone who's got version 14 or 13. They can get 14, 1, 2, 3, whatever. But the R releases with the new features, and which are well tested, the R releases, are only available to maintenance customers. And if there's a bug in an R release, we will give that like highest priority, and we don't usually see that. So,
yeah, the division here that needs to be explained to everybody, developers and customers, is between new features and bug fixes. And our system is set up now to make sure that you get the best stable version, whether you're on a dot release or an R release, that's possible. And that includes sometimes some bug fixes don't make it into the latest R release because they haven't been tested thoroughly enough. And yet a dot release will come out after the R release and have that bug fix in it. And you have to wait the next 3-month cycle to get it. But this is all to ensure that we have the most stable product out there, usable, ready to install and run.
Yeah. And we do have a document about the difference between the two, and we'll find that and send it to you guys. Or, yeah, we'll send it to Brent, and you can pass it out. So.
Yeah.
I think Thomas Mall discussed this either on our website or on a iNug or forums thread at one point. So.
I guess one final question would be what's the motivation inside 4D Inc. for creating these two tracks? What motivated you to start R releases and separate them from the dot releases?
Well, the R releases came about because we used to only have a new release every 18 months or so, right? And so, you know, we would just back up features, and then so we released version 14 today, say, and then we have new features happening all the time. But if we wait to put them all into version 15, it may be 18 months before that actually gets into the pipeline or into the end user's hands. Whereas with an R release, we're trying to put that out about every quarter. And up to date, we've been really, really good about that. And then, so those R releases can go into the end user's hands with a particular feature or whatever that's needed, like now, instead of like 6 months from now or 18 months from now.
So there's a point that's really important here about stability. If we're releasing a new version every 18 months, some developer is going to work on a feature, and that feature may not get in the hands of any of our developer users for another 18 months after he's been working on it. Well, as you guys know, when you leave code and come back to it 18 months, 2 years later to fix a bug, you're vastly less familiar with it, and you have to go through that whole ramp-up of understanding how this bug happened, where you are. So by speeding up the process of getting these features into everybody's hands, we're speeding up the process of getting anything fixed that needs to be fixed in a very stable, quick way that the developers can efficiently do it, and that our developers can spot the problems quickly and get it into user testing and the QA long before that 18-month cycle is done. So by speeding this up to a 3 to 4 month release cycle, we're making a much more stable product.
Okay.
And it makes it more valuable beyond maintenance too, Walt. So it's another attraction for the maintenance program.
Now, for this to work, there's two parts to it. We can do our part in developing the features and turning them out quickly. The other part is we need everybody using these as quickly as possible so that we get feedback on them to improve those features and make sure if there were any bugs that slipped past QA, we jump on those right away. So it's an ecosystem to make this a stable product that includes you guys.
Okay. Thank you for addressing that, and I'm sure you understand from our perspective, you know, releasing our own software with features that need to be maintained and bug fixes that need to be addressed. Sometimes it can be difficult when not only with 4D's versions changing very quickly, the OSs are changing very quickly these days, and sometimes it can be very tricky and tiresome to try and keep up with just simply new versions of everything going around. So
Yep.
It's a brave new world.
yeah.
Understood.
Okay, so I'm gonna get back to the slide here. Yeah. So right. So some of the other things that are coming down the pike here with 2014 and onward, we'll be able to have a real-time server monitor to be able to monitor lengthy operations and allow you to see what operations on your server are tying up resources and ought to be optimized so that the whole environment can work better. There's a couple of new tools coming out: the cash flow analyzer and the data analyzer, both in tech notes to come. They're what they sound like. What's in your cache? What tables are in your cache? What data is being cached? And what data is in your data file? What's taking up the most space? What kind of shape is the data file in? Right. A couple more tidbits. You can now activate and deactivate triggers on the fly, which is pretty handy. A lot of us had added code to the triggers themselves so that they can just be skipped or circumvented under our own conditions. But unfortunately, using any kind of trigger, as far as I know, and you guys can correct me, makes it so that the server doesn't run that operation on multiple cores. So with this feature now, you can completely tell your server not to run the trigger at all, and hopefully the data access would then be able to run on multiple cores. And I think that is going to be a very interesting feature. The new journaling capabilities, of course, we've seen that coming up in even 13.5, but also 14, and I think that's just getting better and better for mirroring, even mirroring from a distance. You can just access the journal files from another server machine and read all of the record changes that have happened on your production server. And I think there are a few more interesting uses of that without going into it too much right now. Mm-hmm. They're addressing the network security with TLS. I'm not a big network security guy, but I understand the necessity of security. So they're moving forward with that. As we all know, seems like every company's gotten hacked these days, and we all need to be on top of our security for our data. Just a little bit more with the.
So one comment about that past slide there, Brent.
Uh-huh.
I think the cash flow analyzer. There was a component included on the USB key for that.
Was there? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would only.
The data analyzer is yet to come, and I think that was supposed to be. And maybe Jim can correct me. I thought they said it was supposed to be like sometime here in Q1, but there was a component, a beta component as far as for the cash flow analyzer.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll click on that one too. But you're right about the cash flow thing.
Okay. Great. Yeah, I haven't brought that up yet, but I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, I was really excited to see the session on the cash flow analyzer was very, very exciting. Although unfortunately I don't have anybody on V14 that I can try it with, but I've asked at a number of summits to be able to do something like tell me what indexes I'm no longer using, and this cash flow analyzer has the ability to do that.
That's great. Yeah, that's That's important, especially if you're on 32-bit Mac with limited usage of your RAM.
Right.
And keep the don't have indexes being maintained that you're not using.
Well, it's just history. I'm sure over the time, at one point in time, a client says this is slow, and the quick fix is just to turn on an index, and it's possible that I have indexes that haven't been used in years, so there's no point carrying them around. So.
Right. Right. Cool. All right. Didn't know that. And just a little bit more. They're completely rewriting and re-engineering their network layer for everything, for the client server, web server, SQL server, PHP server, all of the wrap servers that are included in the 4D ecosystem, which is going to have a tremendous benefit moving forward for staying compliant and current with the technologies. Of course, 4D mobile, 4D in the cloud. We saw some people from Azure come and show how 4D can run nicely in their cloud, and I'm sure it runs nicely in other clouds. There's a lot of different options out there these days. JSON, of course, is a big topic in 14, and moving forward, it's got a myriad of uses and benefits to to application design and whatnot, and of course connecting with other data sources and that kind of thing. It was a big topic at the summit, and also we've already discussed at length the R releases and new release strategies that we're having, and don't mind my cheeky comment there, but there's a lot to think about, and as far as that's concerned, and it's as I mentioned, it's tough to navigate all of the new versions and to know what is fixed exactly, what the changes were, and all of the different versions out there. So it's something that we all have to consider now. So. Right. So a bit about Wakanda. Moving on. Wakanda 10 is now in the stabilization channel. It has a few new cool new features. It's got the Wakanda shell, which allows you the capability to do a bunch of things basically through the terminal to control your Wakanda installation and set different parameters for the for your web application. And we used to be able to simply install Wakanda and launch the server, but now there's a much more exposed via the command line, which is nice when you're running it in the cloud, basically through and accessing it through SSH or something like that. So there's a new object data type in the data store class, similar to what we see in 4D. I assume that that's shared development there between the two, but that's a positive development in Wakanda. They're beta testing the Wakanda Cloud. Now you can publish your Wakanda project to 4D's cloud, Wakanda Cloud, with one click. That's currently hosted in the U.S., I believe, and once they get that sorted out and get it released, I assume that they'll be having cloud installations in other regions of the world as well. There's also something called Angular Wakanda. You're likely in the same manner that you're able to basically publish your Wakanda project to iOS and Android. You're able to now generate an AngularJS web application with Wakanda. That's a Google JavaScript library, so that'll be pretty neat. and some new widgets and widget capabilities. There's a repeater API with live scroll for bigger data. So it's kind of like the matrix element or form element in 4D, where you have a repeated number of objects, and you're able to control that through this repeater API. And there will be a new template property for widgets, so you'll be able to. You can already make your own custom widgets, and I assume you're able to identify one of those as a template for new widgets that you're developing.
Okay. Brent, can I just interrupt for a brief second? I have Shang Lu here, he's with us here at the 4D office, and he's in Wakanda support. So if you guys have any questions about anything on the slide that Brent is showing, now's a good time to ask. Or if you need any clarification about any of the points on this particular slide.
Is the Wakanda studio being rewritten?
I have no idea. I think on the roadmap, it's listed. There is a web version of Studio that's in work. So I'm not sure it's called rewritten, and there is the timeline for that. Probably sometime in this year, 2015, we will see probably a first draft of it. That's the information I know for now.
Okay. Are there very many companies that have deployed Wakanda that you can point to and say, here's a success story?
Yeah, we do have a few of those that we can point to. And right now, because I'm on the 4D side more than I'm on the Wakanda side, we have a lot of 4D developers that are looking at the 4D mobile thing. So we've done several Wakanda trainings here in the San Jose office for 4D developers who need to know the client side of a 4D mobile application. So that's Wakanda, not pure Wakanda. That's for the 4D mobile stuff that's talking to their 4D databases. But there was a tremendous amount of interest in that from the summit. So like I said, we've already done several trainings here in the office for 4D people, and we're doing development work for them as well. We do have some, yeah, we definitely have some Wakanda apps out there that we can point to, and I can send some of those to you, Walt, if you want.
Yeah, that would be helpful, because that's kind of the first question you get from a prospective client is, can we see it in the wild? You know?
Right.
Okay, thanks.
There are a couple of pretty terrific demos of Wakanda that you can link to from the Wakanda site. Namely, one for school management, I believe that's what it was called.
Right.
And which demos some of the capabilities, the more advanced user interfaces that you can create with the Wakanda web applications.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be neat to see what other companies have done out there in the wild. If we could get some links to that, that'd be great. I'd love to feature that on the user group website.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Right, so on to our special feature, the 4D info report component. And I'll hand off to Ed here. Second, and make Ed the presenter.
Okay. We're going to talk a little bit about the 40 info report. This was presented. Okay. Can everybody see the presentation slides?
No.
We're still seeing special topic 4D info, the keynote.
Oh, you are? Okay. Let me just make sure that I turn off my sharing here. And make sure that that's clicked on. Now what do
Now
you
we see Ed.
Okay. Let's see.
Yeah. If anyone's wondering, the full screen
Now
is working, but
While we're waiting for that, Ed, is there, not Ed, I'm sorry, Jim, is David Robbins still working on Wakanda for you guys?
Yes, he is.
Okay. Well, yeah, just haven't seen him around much, so just curious.
Yeah, we see him every day here. Yeah, he's working away hard. He's David does our training, like I mentioned, trainings here in the 4D office. He handles those. They're usually 2-day trainings. He also does some custom development work on Wakanda projects for both 4D developers and Wakanda, pure Wakanda projects. Yep.
Okay.
He's our in-house expert.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, he's a good guy.
He is.
okay.
okay. Can everybody see the?
Now.
See
Now
the browser now.
Okay. Well, we're going to go with that. Since it seems to be when I put it in full screen mode, it likes to turn everything off. The 4D Info Reporter was presented at the pre-class summit, and I thought that it was the most valuable thing I picked up during the summit. It's more than paid for itself, I think, so far, and we're going to take a look at a case study of using it at the Art Institute here. And I'm going to try to make it fairly brief since I know we're going to run short on time. But I like Emil Faber, who I quote here, say, "Knowledge is good." For those of you who are too young, go watch Animal House.
Yep. It's on a statue somewhere.
Right. So what's going on with my server? How do I find out? Used to be that about the only way you could do it was to observe your server. You had the built-in activity monitor or performance monitor on Windows. And you had the 4D server admin window. You could see what was going on in your cache, but you only had a 4-hour limit of what that graph would show. Over time, 4D built in more commands where you could monitor things like different memory aspects, and you're certainly able to do everything that's in the info report component yourself, build your own tool, but why do it if 4D's already done it for you? So the 4D info report component is in 4D, and it provides a slew of information that you can derive patterns from. This case study has a disclaimer: I'm not an expert in the Mac or memory management, but I am curious, and I'll look at data. Our environment at the Art Institute, our production server, is an Xserve. It's got 2 Intel Xeon cores and 12 gigs of RAM. We're running Mac OS X 10.7.5. We have 4D server version 13.4, which is 32-bit. We would love to go to 64-bit, but there's going to be some application aspects that we have to deal with before we're able to do that. We've got some externals that still are not clean in 64, and some features that are particularly used in those externals that we'll have to overcome. We have 112 user licenses for the application server itself for clients or remote access, and then we also run a SOAP server unlimited off that production server. Our current data file is 11 gigabytes. We've got a little over 1 gig index. Our backups are 11 gig, and we have anywhere between 260. And the largest log file I could find recently was 414 megabytes. Besides the production server, there are multiple servers involved. There's a lot of custom code that syncs data between the servers. There are a lot of security restrictions for the information, so some servers only provide a very limited subset of the information. We have our own custom mirror system, and the application itself has got 15 years of development, and it's got a very complex structure. The new element is one 4D programmer that's new to the environment, and that would be me. So if you put it in context of, I really don't know this application that well, what can I find out about it? When you got 112 users on any given time, if you have one crash, you at most annoy people, and worse, make them angry and quite upset with you. So in the first week or two that I was here, I took advantage of one of the perks of working at the Art Institute, and I went over for a lecture at lunchtime. It was gone for 30 minutes, and 3 servers crashed at the same time. Unfortunately, Brent wasn't on site, but he was recovering remotely by the time I got back to our offices here. Then later on, when we were down at the summit, I think we were just waiting for our flights at the airport to return, and we got a text that the production server had crashed, and we had to jump on an access point and recover it just before we made our flights. So I don't know about you guys, I don't like it when servers crash. So I started poking around, and I went through my notes at the summit during the flight back. And I said, well, you know, what have I got here that can help me find out what's going on? As I've said, we have a 15-year development application. It's got extensive logging for events and errors, and nothing in those logs pointed to what was going on. We traveled a lot of different error conditions, but nothing was really showing up as a pattern. The pre-class was migration with experts, and Thomas Mall did just a very short segment on troubleshooting. Largely his segment involved how to adjust memory in your cache and how to find out what was going on in the cache. And so I kind of glanced over it when he was there because we didn't really have a cache problem, at least that I thought. We were using our max cache. Really wasn't much more we could adjust there. But apparently this component was introduced a couple years ago at Boston, and here it is 3 years later. This was the first time I'd ever heard about it. I have noticed that lately when you log into the partner site, they are pushing it as a little tag on the side of one of the sidebars.
That's correct.
Yeah, so take advantage of it. It's a marvelous tool. So we got around to installing the tool on 11th of November. The tool itself runs as a component in your application. It also provides graphic analysis as standalone application. It doesn't install any tables or alter your structure in any way. It generates text documents with the conditions that are currently on your server, and it generates those reports in any interval that you'd like to set. I think the default is 5 minutes. We've pretty much stayed with those defaults. So this is really a case study of what you can do with a very minimal amount of effort to find out what's going on your servers. The reports are saved to a folder next to the data file, but you can customize that location if you need to. You can see here the component just pops into your component folder. There are versions for 12, 13, and 14, and I believe both 32 and 64-bit. So just grab the version that you need and put it in your component folder. It creates this folder here, which will be located next to your data file by default. So at the same directory level as your data file, you'll get a folder called Folder Reports, and it will start putting the reports in there. You can see I ran one report on this small test database, and it's an 8 kilobyte report, so they don't take up very much space, and you can limit the number of reports that you collect. I'll show you a couple of commands that allow you to do that. So once you've dropped your component into the, I think we had to either had another crash or we took down the server in order to install the component. But then you need to have access to an execute. A lot of people have an execute command that they can call from their clients. And there are 2 commands you need to run that I would consider minimal. You can, the first is this AA4D. NP stands for New Process, Report Manage Display. That presents a dialog that allows you to set the minimum parameters to collect reports. And we decided at a later date that this report's max set limit, you can tell it, okay, based on your frequency of reporting, how many reports you would like to collect, and then it'll just cycle through and only keep that number. So we decided we would collect 2 weeks of reports, and if we didn't have access to the reports or we had a problem, we could look back at two weeks worth of data to find out what was going on. You know, your conditions may vary. So when you run that first command, the reports manage display, this is what you get as a dialog. This is ran off of our production database. Select a local folder to store your reports for analysis, and then you have a get all reports that are currently on the server. It'll show you a list of them on the left-hand side. You can start and stop the reporting process up at the top. There's a start and stop. You can set the interval. They have a variety of different types of collection points you can set. But these are all defaults right here. And then you can select a range of reports and import them. Import all that are missing from your stored location, your local folder. Delete reports. And you can open the report folder itself. I have found there's a couple of small bugs you may run up against them. Nothing that brings down the server. Mostly display things. It creates a couple of things right away on the first report. Information about the server itself, the hardware configuration. I think it calls some LEP routines to gather some of that stuff. And some arrays that it uses to manage its reports. So once we started collecting data, this is a sample chart that we had from the second full day of operation. There are a number of different indicators. It puts a key down at the bottom. We got the blue line is the number of users we have. You can see during the day it goes up, usually peaks about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, then everybody logs off later on. The number of tasks, this one puzzled me for a while. It's quite high here, and then it goes up and continues high. These tasks are never recycled, and I have to remember that we also have a SOAP server, so it's reusing those tasks is all I can think of. I don't know enough about that particular metric to tell you exactly what's going on with it. We have a number of user processes. It looks like most of these clients are idle because there are fewer processes than clients connected. So a lot of them may just log on and not be doing anything. There's a used cache size. That's a dark green line here. And we use the maximum cache, so it's a bright green line. The maximum cache is staying level. We don't change it. We set it at the maximum we can use for 32-bit. So it's really kind of noise in this chart, but I included it just to tell you where it's at. And our cache, if you follow the dark green line, we have one point where it flushes a quarter. It builds during the day, and then it flushes again. And based on everything I've read on the cache, that's a pretty healthy turnover in the cache. Every time the cache needs space for an object, it'll look at a big block. The big blocks are 1/4 of your cache that you've allocated. So I'm not worried about our cache settings at this point. Max free blocks and used RAM. Used RAM is pretty level. Max free blocks is so small that it doesn't even show up on this scale. And our scale, to tell you, is on the right side is memory. That's in megabytes. So we've got 7.2 gigs over here is the top end of our scale. On the left-hand side, we have a count. This is for tasks. And users are in blue. And there's a pink line. And the thing that got me is the brown line, which is free memory. And at the start of the day, we've got almost no free memory. It goes down even lower to 0. And at this point, we knew we had a memory problem already. You can see this large vertical spike. There's a command in the Mac OS to free up inactive memory. And that command is purge. It has no, I don't think it has any arguments to go with it. It's a terminal command. You type in purge, and if you look at the activity monitor, you can see suddenly all of your memory is freed up. So we knew we had a problem with memory at some point. So if you follow the free memory line, and when we ran this command, it freed up almost 6 gigs of memory. And during the day, it uses memory and it gets lower and lower, and it levels off after all the users are logged off. And here at 11:30, it drops down to almost 0 again. I started asking what happens at 11:30, and that's when our backup runs. So 4D backup is running. It consumes all the memory it can to do that 11 gigabyte data file backup. And then, because the Mac OS doesn't have, it's got a problem with memory management, it stays inactive, and it's not available for use anymore. So, about the same time that we discovered this purge command and we had the memory problem, Miyako came out with an external that will allow you to run the purge command yourself from code. And we have plans to implement that on our server, but we haven't put up a new version yet. So we're running the purge command in a batch file at midnight. After the backup runs, we want to run the command. We don't want to do it, so we're doing it in a cron job. So here's after we implemented the cron job. At midnight, we've got all of that free memory. Wait, something happens at 6 o'clock. Everything goes, about normal during the day, and we can see, okay, the backup runs at 11:30. We drop down to almost nothing. So we're pretty happy with that result. But I said, well, okay, what happens at 6 o'clock? Well, it turns out there's a stored procedure that runs a huge export, and that consumes a lot of memory. As we get closer to our ideal environment with the parameters that we have now, we may decide to run the purge component, or Miyako's purge commands, following that stored procedure. So memory will be available. We do there's a lot of image retrieval and image work within our application. A lot of high-resolution photos of artworks. So at times we will need big chunks of memory. So a little later on, this is almost a month later, we're running our cron job. We haven't implemented anything to take care of that 6 o'clock bump. But we found we had another problem. There's a flat spot in our number of users logged on. And here for about 40 minutes on this day, we maxed out our user licenses. And nobody told us, nobody called in and said, I can't log in, what's going on? But we know that it's at peak usage times, there's a problem. And if the director of the museum wants to log on and check something at that time, then we would probably hear about it. So it can alert you to things that are happening you don't even know about. And if you also had, well, this is a bump at 2 o'clock. I haven't figured out what this is yet, but I see frequently that we have a memory spike at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I got to ask our network guys if there's something specific that runs on our server in order to consume that memory. So we're getting closer to what we would like, memory management-wise, with a 32-bit server. But you can see if you install this on one of your clients and analyze the logs periodically, you could alert them to things that they don't even know are going on, and may have a sales opportunity for more licenses, may be able to head off some problems that they're going to have in the near future. This is a typical day where we had to restart the server. At this point, I don't know exactly why we restarted the server on this day, but you can see there's a gap in the logging process. For our next release of our application, I'm automatically starting the logs when the server starts up, but that's not implemented yet. So the server started. Brent started the server about 7 o'clock. I said, oh, wait, the logging's not turned on. So I had to go in, run the command to start the server, and then it picked up again, started logging. Well, you would think that when you restart your server, you should have a lot of free memory. But this brown line, which is our free memory, when we restart it, it's almost all consumed. Well, it turns out that our application, so I said, ask questions about what's going on inside of it, does an extensive amount of validation of the data right off the bat if the server's restarted. So that stuff consumed memory. So we will probably have a purge command, again, to run after those validation checks are done.
It's just a symptom of the memory not being released.
Right, and that's because the Mac OS currently doesn't release that memory once it's used. So after all the things we've done, this is now typically what we see on our servers on a typical day. This was a couple of days ago. Midnight, we've got all the free memory we can use. As users start logging on, here's our report, our export that runs at 6. As people log in, we use a little bit more memory. We still have plenty at the end of the day, and then backup consumes all our memory still at 11:30. It's a highly effective tool to use. You don't have to put much code effort in order to use it. Collects the reports. Typically, I log in and dump our reports to a local folder. I've got now, I keep a folder for every month that we operate. So I've got November, December, and I've started January. And I think the more you know about what's going on inside your server, I wish I had this tool when I was still doing consulting work, because it would have helped me quite a bit with some of the problems I faced there. It helps if you're inheriting a situation where you don't know what's going on in the code base. I think it's probably it should. I was mentioning to Jim in an email this morning. I said I think it should be distributed with every server. So if you get a server license, you should have this component automatically. How do I get it? There's your URL in order to download the info report. It's pretty easy to operate. If you run the simple basic commands, there's good documentation that comes with it. It's a tool that's being maintained. The current version is version 8, I believe. It was just updated a couple of weeks ago in December. I can't speak highly enough about it. And if anybody's got more time, we could take a look at some of the interactive graph features. There is an analyze button that will show specific problem conditions and alerts you to any change in those conditions.
Brent, could you paste that URL into the chat window, please?
Sure. Yeah, we can. I bet Ed's got that.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay.
Ed's got that. He'll put that in there. I'd also like to reiterate the fact that you don't need to have an uncompiled version of an application to implement this this component, as long as you can run a command to start it, which can be done from the 4D server. So for for client databases, if you have someone that, or as a user, if you're seeing some odd behavior, you'd be able to at least install it without even having access to the design environment. Now, to analyze the logs, you'd have to be able to start up the component. But I just think that's an important point to make.
Mm-hmm. All right. Once you've collected your all of your log information, you run the component as an application, and there's a menu of different analysis. Produce.
I've been using it since 2011. I've got a chart if anybody wants to see it. I'm not sure if there's a way to share it, but
sure. We can. Would you like to go to share it now? We're gonna take a look at it live on our system if you want, or.
Okay. I'm not. I don't know how I would do that. I have an SVG graphic. Okay.
Do you have it open in a window?
I can do that.
There's a little green arrow up on the left that shows a screen share. Allows you to share your screen.
Okay, let me see if I can.
You basically, once you have the window open that you want to present,
yeah,
go back to the Google Hangout and move your mouse around, and you will see on the left side, the second icon down is a green
screen share.
Click on that. It should open all the windows on your machine, and you select which one you want to share.
You guys see that?
I see. No, still see you. There. Now we can. That's good.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's and Jim probably knows a little bit about my situation. I had a crashing server and started using the info component in the early times before it was publicly shared and tech support was only handling out. But this is essentially a week of this is a Windows server before 64-bit. This is 32-bit. Using running version 12. And this was, I don't believe the version I used had the free memory option that Ed was showing, but you can see the used RAM. Something would happen, and you see that the used RAM would spike up, and of course, as soon as the used RAM hit the memory limit, the server would crash. Once I switched to 64-bit, I lost the ability, that indicator. It would no longer have this spike, but this is just I wanted to show this as an example of what my server was going through when it was crashing. So, but yeah, I've used the information component for a long time, and it's I'm glad to see that tech support now has it available freely for anyone to download, because it's a wonderful tool, and it certainly has come a long way, and from when I started using it in 2011. So.
Yeah, that's for sure. And yeah, and the link that Ed, first off, Ed, thank you very much. That was an excellent demo, by the way, and a good analysis of the graphs that we were seeing. And as you can see, the component has come a long way since the graph that Guy was showing. So yeah, so the link to the information component is also available on Partner Central. So if you go to Partner Central, log in, you'll see it on the left, like Ed said earlier. We have Thomas Schlumberger is the engineer who actually supports this, updates it, does all the docs for it, and is responsible for it. I think he does a tremendous job. So he makes sure it's running on all the new OSs, on Yosemite, etc. So we've always used it internally as a very valuable part of tech support. But like you said, Guy, it's available to everyone now. So, yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's back, sort of to give a little history, when I started using it, this particular server, right after we upgraded to version 12, what would happen is the server would crash about every 3.5 days. This was before it was sort of publicly available. Tech support gave it out as a case-by-case basis. So I used it extensively and talked with a number of the engineers at 40 Summits regarding the crashing problem, and tried to figure out what was causing it. But this I keep this chart around just as it's this picture I think speaks volumes in terms of what's going on, and the indicators. Again, when I was running 32-bit, I actually put code in the that ran every 5 minutes on the server to monitor the used RAM, and as soon as the used RAM went up above that 2800 mark, I sent an email to myself that said, "Hey, the server's about to crash." But once I moved to 64-bit, I lost that. This particular indicator went away, and upgrading to version 13 essentially stopped the crashing. So.
It's nice to have that 64-bit option.
Yeah. I mean, this particular database runs with a 20 gig cache on a 32 gig machine. I don't think I would want to run non-64-bit. It's a lot of processes, a lot of activity, and I mean 100 users I think is on that list. It usually doesn't go more than that. I think 109 users is the maximum I've had on this particular machine.
It's we would love to move to 64-bit, but our hands are tied in a couple of areas, and it's going to take some extensive reworking of our application to make it 64-bit compatible. So in the meantime, we're doing what we can.
Have you guys done any testing with the 64-bit server yet?
We've got an external that is not 64-bit clean. So.
Okay.
And
I'd love to.
It's all over the place in the app. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Well, I have a question here. This is Jim from 4D. So that purge command that you were talking about, Miyako's his command there. Did you find that out by yourself, or was that something that you read about, or how did you determine that
I read
on the OS that was happening?
Yeah, I'm on the iNug mail list, and it just caught my eye because that's exactly what we needed.
Yeah, it was literally the next day. We Googled how to purge inactive memory on OS X, one day and found out that was the answer, and then Miyako came out with a way that it could be run from within 4D as essentially a service that you just allow once, and then the system allows it to run as root to purge whenever you want it. Whenever you call the command, it's a plugin.
Yeah, it actually operates like the helper tool that used to allow the web publishing on port 80. So it gives you elevated privileges to the purge command, so you don't have to authenticate as the administrator on the machine.
Right. Okay.
Right, and I encourage anybody interested in the plugin to check out basically all of Miyako Kisuki's, if I'm saying that correctly, sorry, Miyako.
Kazuke.
Yeah, Keisuke. His GitHub site account. It's just a wealth of extensions for 4D. It's really a tour de force of what else you can do with it. So, yeah. So to wrap up, any other questions, discussions, anything on Wakanda or 4D, anything?
I'm just wondering, as we sort of go ahead with this virtual user group, is there going to be a continued 4D presence? I'm glad to see Jim here. I'm just wondering if that's going to be I think it's important to have that. So.
I totally agree with you. And first off, I want to thank Brent and Ed and all the people from the Art Institute for taking time to put this Google Hangout together.
Absolutely.
Very valuable for us here to see what you guys are talking about. And yes, we definitely plan to attend.
Good.
Probably get more technical people in here. Get a little bit more heads up about what we'll be discussing, so we can have the right people in the meeting. And yeah, these are invaluable for us. So thanks again for setting this up.
Yeah, of course, on my pleasure. And I'd like to remind everyone that this will be a recording that will be available on YouTube. So if you'd like to check out Ed's presentation again, or any of the points from the summit, that will be available, and feel free to comment or post resources to the Midwest 4D website or the YouTube presentation. It's all available now, and it's all set up for us to start collaborating. Yep. Thanks everybody for attending. We'll see you next time.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Brent. See ya.
Thank you.
Bye.